Alright guys, welcome back to another Opera Omnia video where we're going to be talking about which LD weapons I plan to pull for and or skip here in the months of December and January. Now, some of you guys might find this pretty familiar with the BT Pull Planning Edition videos that I upload, where I talk about BT units that are going to be coming here in the next 2.5 months. But in my last one, and I asked you guys if you wanted me to do something similar to that, but for LD weapons, upcoming LD weapons. And based on the feedback that I got in that video, it seemed like people were curious to know what I am planning to pull for here in the next 2 months. Now, I'm going to keep it only at 2 months, only because there is a lot of LDs to talk about in this video. I'm going to try to keep it as short as possible so that way I won't be making it seem like I'm doing like an in-depth video for like the multiple characters that I'm going to be talking about. So I'm going to keep it short and briefly mention like the biggest things about the LD characters. So in the comment section below, if you guys want to let me know which LD weapons you're considering either throwing tickets, gems, or maybe even just doing the free multis, if there is any free multis on their banner, do let me know in the comment section below which ones you are considering pulling on and which ones you are considering skipping for the month of December and January only. And of course, if you do enjoy the video, and if you have any questions about anything, do let me know in the comments section below. And of course, if you do enjoy it, like, subscribe, do all that good stuff is what I meant to say. But anyways, though, let's go ahead and start off. I will go ahead, excuse me. I will go ahead and say that I'm not going to be talking about any of the BT units, only because I've already made a video talking about them. So I'm not going to be going over any of the BT units. So with December coming up, and as I'm recording this video, Shiva Divine is going to be arriving pretty soon. We do have the return of Jack and RCL's LD weapon. I actually already have both of these LD weapons, but for those who are curious about them, let's say for any new players, Jack's LD ability, at least in terms of a call ability, is actually a very good call ability to have. And also the same goes for RCL. As even for RCL, both being used in team comps or as an LD call, she actually performs really well with how her kits work. So you can't go wrong with either of the two if by chance you are a new player or if you have missed any of these two in the past. Now, we do have the Kadaj Lost chapter coming up. I actually already have Kadaj's LD weapon, if I'm not mistaken, on my global account. But Maria's LD weapon is actually one that I'm going to consider pulling for, only because with her kit, she inflicts a trap debuff. Now, this trap debuff, aside from like the other little things that it does, it actually triggers an attack before the enemy's turn and after the enemy's turn. So the attack before the enemy acts, which is called Haya, basically it reduces the target's brave to 0 if they are not broken. So that really comes in handy whenever the enemy gains a whole bunch of brave out of nowhere. And if you have this this trap debuff inflicted onto the enemies, then you don't have to worry about a single thing. It does also increase the party's brave by 20% of their own max brave, and it also heals as well. And then afterwards, it also triggers the other attack that it deals after the enemy acts, which is called a Toya. And this right here is basically just like an attack base follow-up attack, and that's about it. You're not really getting anything too crazy out of it. It's just basically a follow-up attack, pretty much. The only reason why I am gonna be throwing some tickets at Maria's LD weapon, even though, if I'm not mistaken, she did not get a rework when her LD weapon first came. If I'm not mistaken, I'd have to double check myself and correct myself in a pinned comment. But I do want to grab her LD weapon, only because like having her in team comps with that attack before the enemy's turn and after can really come in handy. And even as a call ability, it does come in handy as well. So hopefully I'm able to snag it with some tickets. So I am pulling for Maria's LD weapon. Now, afterwards, there's going to be a raid event, And with that raid event, we got the return of Erev's LD weapon, and we also got Shadow, who's going to be getting a rework and his LD weapon. Now, Shadow is actually a character that I'm probably going to pass up on, and I'm not, when I say that I'm passing up on a character, I don't want to give the indication that the character is bad or anything like that. It's just that after I use Shadow, I think I probably use Shadow maybe once or twice, but because of the variety of units that I do have, especially ones that have, like, say, evasion on them, and for future characters that do have evasion in their kit, I think I could probably pass up on Shadow. But Shadow, he does gain a new overhead above him. With this overhead, he gains a max brave up, brave damage resist up, and then he also gets the life of violence buff as well. Now, it's a stackable one, and it gives him critical brave damage up, overflow, and HP damage up. Also, whenever he evades an enemy attack, it increases the stacks by 2, and then after his own turn, it decreases by 1. Now, whenever it is at least 2 stacks, you do get instant turn rate with it, and it doesn't increase the turn count. And it also doesn't consume ability use, so you do get a free ability use afterwards, which is a really good thing. Also, with the Wild Fang Plus, which is, I believe, his the follow-up attack after his abilities. I could be wrong on that. So while the overhead is active, and after evading or using Shadow Stealth with Wild Throw or Shadow Fang or Assassination, which is his abilities, he follows up with that follow-up attack 2 times, and it also ignores defense. So you kind of get a little bit of variety with Shadow, and what he gets with his LD ability, and then the rework, of course, changes up a couple things here and there. But Shadow can be very convenient, especially with that instant turn rate and the free ability use in between all of that as well. So, in a way, aside from like the bonus that he gets to himself, he also extends his longevity as well, only because of his LD ability and that follow-up that he has as well. So, I wouldn't mind having it. I might throw maybe a few tickets, but I think I'll probably be just fine without Shadow's LD weapon. I'll probably just wait for a future banner and pull for it later on. Next up is going to be Dimensions End. Now, with this one, Lenna gets her LD and a rework. Now, Lenna is definitely a favorite of mine in terms of the support category, only because with her LD ability, she provides a crap ton of auras. Let's see, max HP up, overflow, brave damage up, HP damage up, and then when party members have 50% or more of their HP, they gain an additional brave damage up and HP damage up, which is crazy. Also, with her Giant's Drink and Dragon Breath, her HP attack, or Brave attack, one of the two, changes into, HP attack, changes to Dragon Breath. Now, you get 3 uses with this Dragon Breath ability, and it is based on the current party's HP, and she will deal 3 HP dumps with it, and you have 3 uses to it, and then after the 3 uses, it reverts back to her HP attack plus. It's actually a pretty strong addition to her overall kit, and it's definitely going to be an LD weapon that I'm going to be pulling for, because like aside from like the auras that she already gives with her base kit, the LD ability really just bumps it up by a big amount. So it's a support character. It's one of my favorite support characters that I use for a very good minute in JP, and she does have a C90 and she performs much better. And I still think that she is she is very much a top, in my opinion at least, a top tier support character, and it's an LD weapon that I am definitely going to be pulling for. Next up will be let's see, the Transcendence Stage 6. So the previous banner was kind of like a campaign type of banner. So, that banner right there is kind of like in question as to whether or not it will appear, which I'm kind of hoping it does appear because, again, Lenna's LD ability is very strong. So with Dimension Stage 6, Selphie gets her LD ability, and I actually don't have that pulled up. So let me pull that up real quick for you guys, because Selphie's LD ability is actually a very good one that is still used in the JP side today. Now, with her LD ability, it grants her the new ability called Rapture. So it reduces all enemies' brave to 0, excluding broken. It increases the party's brave by 50%, and it's an AoE move. The brave is not consumed. It deals full HP damage, and it delays all enemies by 2 turns. And it also inflicts the knockback on the selected target. Now, it does inflict a debuff called Rapture. So received attacks guarantee a knockback unless resisted. And after the knockback, it increases the party's brave by 5% of the HP damage dealt during the knockback. And then she also gains a brand new buff as well, which provides the party with brave regen, brave gains, HP damage up, and then when knocking the enemy into the air, it increases the party's brave by 20% of their own max brave, and also gives an additional HP damage up as well. So it's a very solid LD ability, and even with the with her LD boards, it adds brave regen, additional brave gains, additional HP damage up. It adds her LD ability is very, very good, and it's one that I personally would not recommend players skipping out on, because like it does so much for the party, and her overall kit as well really complements her LD ability. So I am definitely going to be pulling for Selphie's LD ability. Next up will be the intertwined wills for December, which would be Kain, and the return of Barrett's LD as well. Now I already have Barrett's LD, so I'm not too worried about that. Kain, on the other hand, we now know that Kain is going to be the first character to get an FR weapon in about, what, 5-6 months from now for Global. So I think most Global players pretty much know how his ability works. But for those who do not know, his LD ability basically makes it so that he is able to go in the sky, and he gets a new overhead as well called Power of Dragons. Now this gives him brave damage up, overflow, HP damage up. Whenever attacking a single target, you get an increase in brave damage up. And with the Power of Dragons overhead, you need to get it to 4 stacks so that your brave attack becomes double jump. And then with double jump, you are able to be up into the sky. Now, once you give him his character boards, you get brave damage up, stolen max brave overflow up, HP damage up, and when attacking a single target, it does add additional brave damage up for Kain. So with the with that follow-up that he does, it does deal a 3-hit group AoE ranged brave plus an AoE HP attack that deals split HP damage, and it does not consume brave, and it cannot knock back. Now, speaking of knockback, whenever, let's say one of your other teammates decides to knock back the enemy, and if Kain is in that turn order, he will participate in that knockback, and he does not lose his brave either, if I'm not mistaken. So it's actually pretty convenient to have Kain in the air in terms of, like, say, team comps that you can see yourself launching. But with that, I mean, every time that that the enemy, or if your teammates act, his follow-up attack will trigger. So it's actually a very convenient one. So if you want those like in-between follow-up attacks, Kain is definitely the guy to go for. I'm going to be pulling for his LD weapon only because I'd rather have his LD weapon now, and then that way later on when he gets his BT and his FR weapon, then that's the only 2 things that I have to worry about. If, of course, I do have the resources for his LD ability. But his LD ability is not too shabby, and it's very nice if you want those additional follow-up attacks. Next up is going to be the Heretics event for December, which will give Yida her rework and her LD ability. Now, I feel like a lot of people might actually pass up on Yida, only because, like, either they're not impressed by her or they're not a fan of her, etc., etc. For me, myself, since I have been playing 14 like a madman, I'm going to be pulling for Yida only because she is a fave of mine. Now, with this attack, it is an AoE full HP damage to all targets type of attack, and she does grant herself a new buff called In This World With My Partner, and she also gives herself evasion up, which is a guaranteed 100% evasion up for 1 turn, and it does upgrade her snap punch to snap punch plus. Now, with this buff, gives her an attack up, overflow up, brave damage up. When dealing critical brave damage, she gets an increase in brave damage up by 30% and HP damage up. Now, the thing with Yida, and it's something that I've actually done and I've uploaded to the channel before, but Yida kind of has like this funny mechanic in a way. It's kind of, I guess you can call it like a cheese somewhat, quote unquote. But with this quote unquote cheese, if she constantly breaks, she is able to give herself kind of like a free additional turn as long as you have this in this world with my partner buff active. Now, this does get extended to 12 turns with that buff. Also, the thing about her kit is the fact that she actually does have the ability to be able to increase her buffs by 1, if I'm not mistaken, meaning that she will never lose her buffs if you constantly break with her HP attack, which is her HP attack plus. So while that buff is active, she'll do a 4-hit melee brave plus an HP attack. And as you can see here, it has high turn rate and it extends her active buff duration by 2 turns. And then when breaking the target, she gets instant turn rate, and granted turn does not increase the turn count, and granted turn has instant turn rate. And inflicting break on a granted turn will not grant another. So you can't like break the enemy back to back. You kind of have to like in a way like break, use a skill, or just use HP attack plus again, and then use HP plus again, and then break again, and the cycle just keeps going over and over and over. If you have Sephiroth's BT effect active, so for those who don't know, Sephiroth's BT effect makes it so that the enemy's brave will always go to 1. Whether they gain brave or whatever, it'll still go down to 1. So Sephiroth and Yida, pretty nasty combination. If you add yourself a support character, then best believe Yida will be dealing some heavy damage. I do have a video. If I remember, I will put it down in a pinned comment so you know exactly what I'm talking about, because I did do this cheese and it's actually pretty funny. I don't know if I would if you were to call it a cheese or not. I mean, it is part of a mechanic. So is it a cheese? Is it not a cheese? I don't know. But you know what? I still have fun with it because of the fact that that I was able to do these type of shenanigans with Yida. So Yida, I will be throwing some tickets for her LD ability, and hopefully I will able to get it during the Heretics event that will be released. Now, next up in January. Rude and 8 get the LD weapons. I already have both of them, so I'm not too worried about it. There is a seasonal campaign, and I'm not too sure if, because, with how things have been lately with these campaign type of banners, that happen in JP Global either tends to hold off on them or push them back later, or maybe they might bring them early. I don't know. Anything can happen at this point. But if by chance nothing happens, Balthier and Yuffie, they get their LD weapons, even though they already have it in Global. But Balthier does get his rework finally. And it's not a bad rework, but I already have both LDs, so I'm not too worried about it. There's a mission dungeon coming up, and Sazh gets his LD weapon and a rework. Now, many players are pretty familiar with Sazh, especially day 1 players. But with his LD ability called Aggression, provides the party with attack up, stolen brave damage up, HP damage up, and then when breaking or attacking a broken target, it does add stolen brave damage up and party HP damage up, which is a 30% HP damage up, which is really good. Also, whenever you give him his LD boards and whatnot, it does add party stolen max brave overflow up, and then it does also add whenever you break or attack a broken target, it adds party stolen brave damage up by 10%. I think most players pretty much know how Sazh works. I mean, he provides some very good offensive buffs in terms like attack, critical rate up, so on and so forth. He's not a bad LD unit at all, especially if you pair him up with the right characters. Now, his LD ability, though, is, if you have the right units, you could definitely get some damage out of it. but it is a one-hit Brave plus an HP attack 7 times. So, like, say if you pair them up with Kate Sif, or if you use a Kate Sif call, especially with Sazh granting so many buffs, I mean, you will get it. You'll take full advantage whether you have Kate Sif on your team or as a calling ability to get the most percentages and the most Brave in between those attacks. So, that's like kind of like one example that you can do with Sazh. But for me though, Sazh, like he's good either ways as using him in team comps or as a call ability. I mainly use him as a call ability. So I may actually hold off on Sazh, but I'm not 100% sure if I do want to snag his LD weapon yet. Because I'm still kind of conflicted because of the fact that, I'm definitely going to be pulling for Lenna. I'm going to be pulling for Selphie, which are good support characters. And to add an additional offensive or buff offensive, offensive buff granter, whatever you want to call it. I don't know. But, to add another character that provides some very good offensive buffs or auras to the party, it's kind of like in question, like, should I or should I not? So it's a big question mark right now as to whether or not I want to pull for his LD ability. But if you are needing somebody who gives the party like offensive type buffs, then Sazh would be a pretty good option to pick up. Next up, Fran, which will release with the Act 3, Chapter 5, Part 2. She gets a rework in her LD weapon, and then Mog returns with his LD weapon. Now, Fran, the good thing about Fran is that debuff that she gets called Vieira's Punishment. Now, with this right here, before, it used to only go up to 5 stacks, and you will get a defense down, attack down, max brave down, magic attack up, and range resist down. Well, her LD ability pushes that further beyond. Yes, I know, it's a DBZ reference. So it actually goes up to a max stacks of 10. And as you can see here, she adds so much more stuff into this one debuff. So she adds a speed down, a brave damage resist down, an HP damage resist down, brave gains down by 40%, which is, really, really helpful. And then at 10 stacks, adds more defense down, more attack down, max brave down, magic attack, speed, brave damage resist down, HP damage resist down, and brave gains down. Yes, this is a very powerful debuff, one to definitely have. And for me, either as a call ability, I used her, or in team comps, this is I can't say it's not one that you really, really need, but like with all of this that you get into one frame debuff, it's if you have the extra resources, I would recommend picking it up, so that way you can take advantage of all the stuff that you are gaining, that you're going to be getting with this one debuff when you inflict them to the enemy. So aside from that, her rework is not too bad, but like the biggest thing now is definitely going to be the additional 5 stacks that she gets to her Vieira's Punishment. So I'm going to be throwing some tickets at Fran's LD weapon, and I'm probably going to be using her more as a call ability than I am going to be using her in team comps, only because I want to stack debuffs down on top of other debuffs that you have from other units. Next up, second to last character is going to be Paine. Now, Paine is an interesting character because she can actually be used in many different ways. So basically, to kind of sum up, summarize how she works. So depending on which position you have, Paine will depend on what either your team is getting or what the enemies are going to be getting. Now, I can't remember which side is which, but basically, if you put her on one side, she has the ability to grant some pretty strong party auras depending on the amount of buffs that you have and the amounts that you grant to the party afterwards. And then the same goes for the enemy. If you put her on the other side, is the enemy will be inflicted with a negative aura in a way where they will have like a whole bunch of stuff negatively affect them, but in turn will also help you out as well whenever you are attacking them. And then if you put Paine in the middle, then you kind of get a mix of both. It's not a full complete set. If you were to have her on the right or left side, but you kind of get like half of each if you have Paine in the middle. And, for the debuff part, it depends on how many debuffs you have in the party and how many times you inflict it. And the thing is, though, like, as soon as you keep inflicting more and more, like, that overhead that she gets to herself stays that way for the entire fight. So it never goes down. Even if, like, say, like, your buffs get cleansed or your debuffs get cleansed by the enemy, so which is good. It'll help you out a very good amount. So which is a great thing too, because like if that actually got affected by it, then in my opinion, Paine would not be worth it. But because of the fact that it doesn't affect her overhead, then you are good to go. As whenever Paine gets her, or whenever we get closer and closer to Paine's LD ability release, I know Rem from the City of DB has an infographic, and I will be talking about that in that video to further explain how it works, because it might be complicated to some, it might not be complicated to others, but it's very easy to understand, and it's not hard at all to use her with her LD ability. And then finally, we're going to end it off with Snow with his LD ability. Now, before I talk about Snow's LD ability, I know Ursula is right there in the month of January. I'm not going to talk about her in this video, only because she is actually a brand new character that will be released for Global. So because of that, I would prefer to not talk about her until we get closer and closer to her event release. So for her, I'm going to hold off on saying whether or not I'm going to pull for her, and just save it for her in-depth video for those who are wondering. But for Snow, with his Intertwined Wills event, Snow gets a pretty good LD ability, and as you guys know, he does get a BT plus later on, and his BT plus is pretty busted in my opinion. So with the brand new buff called Vendetta, gives him an Ice Enchant, HP damage up, party, HP regen, party except for Cell, Brave damage resistor by 60%, and it triggers the Vendetta attack before turn at 1 stack. So he will attack before his own turn, which is sweet. And it also triggers the Vendetta attack plus whenever you before his turn at 2 stacks, and then that gets reduced back down to 1. So either or, like, you will still trigger that Vendetta attack. And then once you give him his LD boards, he adds party HP damage resist up and Brave gains up by 30%. Now this Vendetta attack, it triggers while Vendetta is at 1 stack and at the start of the turn. So once it's Snow's turn, he will attack with this Vendetta attack, and he does inflict the ice resist down to all targets for 4 turns, which is great. And then the plus version basically adds 2 more HP dumps to that as well. The Vendetta buff I did talk about, so yes. For Snow's LD weapon, he's actually a super convenient farmer for, like, say, if you have to farm crystals or gil or whatever it is, or if you're trying to get through story quests and whatnot. Yeah, he's an excellent farmer for all of that, because of the fact that he attacks before the enemy does anything on his own turn. But aside from, from the farming part, like, his LD ability is nice to have. It is good to have, in my opinion. I will be throwing tickets at his LD weapon, so that way, whenever his BT weapon releases in about, I don't know, like 4 or 5 months from now, whichever time it is, May. So that'll be January, February, March, April, May, 4 months, 4 or 5 months. I don't know, I can't math. Then I'll just be able to token his BT weapon, because, like I said, his BT weapon is pretty busted in my opinion, because of what it does for the party. But yeah, with that being said, though, guys, that's going to be it for this pull planning edition for LD weapons. Let me know again in the comment section below who you are planning to pull for when it comes to the LD weapons only for December and January. And I'm curious to know what you guys are going to be thinking about and pulling for and or skipping for these 2 months. And then, and like I said at the beginning of the video, I think I did, I will be doing another pool planning LD edition for February and March once we get into like mid-January or something. So yeah, with that being said though, guys, if you guys enjoyed the video, consider liking the video and subscribing for future Opera Omnia content. Thank you so much for watching, and I will catch you guys in my next video.